Welcome to Out of Order. I'm Marcus and I'm here working on Zaxxon. This is a really awesome isometric shoot 'em up from Sega circa 1983. I don't know, something like that. I have the joystick taken apart. Thought I'd show you guys some damage that I noticed while I was looking at it. I'm trying to add a plexiglass overlay to the top, so I just wanted to take the joystick off, and then as I did that, I looked inside and there was like a actual broken wire that needs to be fixed. So I'm gonna end up like doing something a little better. First I thought I'd try and like solder it back together, but it's too far gone. So I either have to patch it or I don't know. We'll see what I do. But I thought I'd show you how this thing works. Let's check it out. So the joystick's kind of just laying here, but it's interesting how it's all metal. And it's got a little micro switch there. Super high quality. The LED is pretty old school. I can't remember if it works. I feel like it does. But the part that had damage was actually where this metal, like, I guess it's like a guide for this screw. And it basically, over time, was rubbing right here. And the wire is like hanging on by just one strand of wire, you know? It's like really bad. So I'll either run a new wire to this point from inside and wire it up. That might be the easiest thing. Or I'll splice it here, and attach it again. So I'll do something, but for some reason this part's pretty sharp right here, and this is, I think, factory. I mean, I think that's just Sega. But to get this thing off, because I do need to take it off, you can either undo all the wires in here, pull it through that way, or on the inside undo them and pull it up through. And there's like a, you know, set screw, or not a set screw, a C-clamp, like right here. And so I can remove that and pull it up through the top. So anyway, just thought I'd show you guys that. It's kind of crazy. I did kind of burn the plastic away just so or the sheath a little bit so I could see what was going on. But yeah, it's screwed. So I'm just gonna trim it and fix it, put it back together. But first I'm gonna take this off, remove this whole thing. Another thing that's kind of cool is how the whole thing flips down. So here's the inside of the joystick. But what's cool is I like these like I don't know, catch levers on either side with springs. So that's how this is being supported right now. Of course, all the buttons are leaf springs, and as long as I have enough height on the button, I'll keep them. Meaning, like when I go to put the plexiglass on, am I gonna have enough height to clear the added plexiglass? Because they're real short. They're like really low profile buttons. So anyway, just thought I'd show you guys this joystick. It's crazy. I love how it's just super like metal. Here's the other piece here too. So yeah, pretty wild. It's like it was painted at one point. It was like maybe yellow and someone painted it black for some reason. So crazy game. It works really well. I don't know, I really like the artwork on this one. So once I got the joystick pulled off here, you know, this section right on this sort of metal area would, over time, when you put this together, if you look in there, it's kind of hard to see, but it actually fits pretty loose, which means that as this joystick moves back and forth, you know, it's gonna rub on those wires right here. Even if, like, for example, this might come up and go in between this section in here, because these don't come flush. So there's a screw that comes through, and that's how I think the wires got damaged. So anyway, what this is just heat shrink tubing, and I did end up cutting it. So what I'm gonna do is I put the heat shrink tubing on. I'm gonna put this back together. I'm gonna grease this up just a little bit. It's pretty cool how sturdy it is, but anyway, so I'm gonna grease that up, put this back together, and then reinsert this through the top of the joystick and solder these 3 points together, these 3 wires back together. And then I'll encase them in either more heat shrink tubing or just tape, you know, something. Now this has a control panel overlay, which is awesome. Again, Greg helped me out with that. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, I mean, it looks really good. And, you know, I just attached this on there. So basically now the goal is to insert the wires down there, mount this back on, and then this actually, it's attached right now, but this tilts back, and then I can get to the 3 joystick wires. The only other thing that I'm puzzling about here is these buttons, these leaf spring buttons. And, you know, some people like these. Let's see if I can find, this is the button. They don't have a lot of resistance. Like, these springs are pretty old, you know. They definitely don't have like a click, like a micro switch, because that's what you're looking at. You have this leaf spring switch, and these have to be adjusted just right. So when you push up the plunger, it makes contact, you know, and that's what triggers the button. Well, in a lot of early arcade games, this is what you have. And on some of the games, I've changed them. It just depends on the game, you know. In this case, they all look like they're in pretty good shape, and they'll probably be fine, and so I might just leave them. But when you add an extra layer, even like this, you know, overlay, this Lexan, when you put the button back in, you have to account for this amount of distance if you want this to work properly. So you have to like actually bend this like probably up, you know, both of these. And it can just kind of get annoying trying to adjust them. Now that's just me. I'm a little bit lazy, you know, like it's a little bit easier just to put in micro switch buttons. You know, for example, you know, a button like this where it's like a plunger with a micro switch holder. And these just work really well. Plus, I kind of like the feeling of a micro switch button because you actually feel the resistance of the button being pressed. Whereas this, it just feels kind of loose. But like I said, that's sort of how the old original arcade games were, you know? But yeah, anyway, this looks really good. I did clean the control panel before I put this on, and then I added a strip of this gaffer tape along the top, which I think looks really good because this was all tore up on top there. So I don't know, I'm stoked to get this thing going though. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing mounted, you know, and then figure out what I'm doing with the buttons, if I'm gonna leave them or not. So here it is, put back together. I did use the original leaf spring switches. You know, they're fine. I just don't, I don't know. Sometimes they just need a little adjustment, you know, but they're in good shape, and they do kind of keep it feeling original. I mean, this is an old game, so left those, and then here's where that wire shrink, or the shrink wrap tubing comes out, and then I just re-soldered the 3 wires together. One thing that's cool is the light is working. I don't know if the light was working before, but the fire buttons all do that, which is really cool. Let's coin up here. I actually really like this game, but it is a little bit hard to figure out the perspective. Kind of reminds me of Viewpoint, except Viewpoint's a lot more modern. You gotta watch out for the those rockets. The control panel's not attached, so it's a little bit loose. Nice. That bird's actually pretty tricky. Ooh. Alright, so I'm gonna put it back together, but there it is. Zaxxon. New control panel overlay. And the joystick has been redone. I also found a screw for this right side. It didn't have one before, so it was a little bit loose. And yeah, the way that the wire's wrapped inside there with the shrink wrap tubing should be good for a long time. So this is a cool, I also replaced a LED down here on the coin door. This is a really interesting cabinet, the way this whole thing flips up. It's kind of unusual, but yeah, it flips up and hits the switch up here. So anyway, pretty cool. So there you go, that's Zaxxon, the arcade game. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, leave a like. Thanks for subscribing to Sunset Hotline. And until next time, you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna keep that shit retro by playing Viewpoint on the Sega Genesis later on.